When compared to tracks such as Monza and Silverstone, the Hungaroring certainly looks like a newer circuit. But we have to remember, it's now getting close to 40 years old. It's developed a rich and storied history. Let's see which of our drivers will become a part of that story today as we get ready to watch round 11 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. If there's one thing this place is notorious for, it's the technical and twisty layout. Let's get a closer look at it with our track guide. Welcome to the Hungaroring. Situated just northeast of Budapest, this Grand Prix circuit has racked up a stunning history in just a little more than 30 years of existence. Its biggest claim to fame was holding the first Formula One race inside the Iron Curtain at a time when the Cold War was at its peak. But most fans don't associate this 2.7-mile or 4.38-kilometer track with politics.
No, its 14 turns make it tight and twisty with a reputation for few places to overtake. For a long time, it was renowned for processional races in which qualifying is of the utmost importance. But the past couple decades have seen a litany of utterly wild and unpredictable races that greatly overshadow the single-file events of before. The majority of passing takes place into Turn 1, while some battles do carry on into Turn 2. But be careful about how greedy you get, because the steep drop in elevation makes it easy to go wide. Other than that, Turn 12 is often the only other realistic place to sneak by your opponent. Perhaps the scariest and trickiest of the corners is 4, which presents a blind and crooked entry into a high-speed flick. Though modern times have seen a paved runoff added to it to make it safer, that's considered out of bounds, and drivers will find themselves being told to give back time if they abuse the exit. Built with fans in mind, the track sits in a natural bowl, allowing great views from most sides of the venue. It's easy to see why it's become a fan favorite on the F1 calendar, and there's little doubt it'll continue to see lots of racing for years to come.
Well, Joey, we had the Lotus 49s at Mid-Ohio, and kind of a similar deal, it feels like, to this place with the way it is so twisty.
Absolutely. 14 turns, 2.72 miles is the Hungaroring. And you're right, it is a little bit more of a technical racetrack. Your two best passing opportunities are actually turns 1 and 2. Some good long brake zones to try to outbrake your competitor there. But you have to notice here at turn number 2, it actually starts to feed down the hill. And after those two good passing opportunities comes two very fast kinks, first to the right and then to the left. So it really picks up the speed through there. You got to be careful on some of these exit curbs, especially on the 79s. The low slung cars do not like those alligator curbs. And then at the top of the racetrack here on the track map, it starts off in turns 6 and 7. That's the first chicane. And then it slowly builds the speed through the switchbacks, through 8, through 9, gets even faster through 10 and 11. Then it approaches turn number 12 all the way at the bottom right here of the track map. That is where those slow speed hairpins start, the slowest and lowest point of the circuit down there. And then it is climbing all the way uphill, tedious. Lots of over-under passing can happen through 13 and 14. And make sure you get the power down. Don't spin up those rear tires because it leads you down that front straightaway.
Yeah, or we're going to see drivers probably desperately trying to make those moves down into that first corner, no doubt. But it won't be for points as much here this time because Kimmo Viekainen has now clinched the championship over Antti Lepisto thanks to the drop weeks. Juho Raina was the one chasing him for much of the championship, but we haven't seen him around for some time. In fact, he's not here today, unfortunately. So he'll continue to plunge a little bit, although Hugh Haycox is a ways behind. So not sure if he's going to be able to overtake that third spot. If anything, we might see this locked in, those top three, after today's race. It is going to be a close battle, though, between Gernot Friesche, Barry West, and Jack David Spickett to decide who winds up fifth in this championship. You can kind of throw in Hugh Haycox in there in that fight as well, make it a battle for fourth, but he's got a little bit of a margin. We'll see how things wind up in the end, as, like we said, we got one more round after this one. We also have the same deal, of course, with the F2s. One more race to go, but that one's a little bit tighter here, Joey.
Yeah, well, Thomas Silbernagel does have his foot down pretty hard on the competition. You see 64 points in front of Chris Roberts, but then it does tighten up there. It's about 8 to 10 points apiece between Chris Roberts, Timothy Vandenberg, and Miguel Moreland, all arguing for what is kind of second, third, and fourth, but really the close battle is for fifth between Keith Herner and Kurt Clapper. You see them tied right there. They're at 180 points apiece, so with 2 rounds remaining. Some of these spots, they're still kind of up for grabs. We also have Arnold Cook, Pablo Suarez, Robert Simpkins, and Cam Porter, one of our regulars inside the top 10.
And with this being a split today, we could see drivers here in the top split there from that F2 championship trying to grab points. But let's take a look at today's event here as we have 24 laps around this 11th round. It is an open setup series, but probably going to see drivers try to put as much wing as they can in to get the speed around some of these more medium speed corners. Although if they are slow in a straight line, it's going to be difficult if they try to make an overtake and they're caught farther back in the field. No spare car. Like I was kind of hinting at, this is becoming sort of an old school track compared to some others, although there is some paved runoff in some of the swifter turns. But that means that those drive-through penalties are easier to rack up in a couple places. So keep it between those white lines so you don't get that drive-through or DQ here today. Now, qualifying looks like we've got most cars having put a first lap down. And Juan Costa, he said he fixed his wheel, Joey, and he's come back once again looking like the man to beat.
I see a 133.563 right now is provisional pole. Kimmo Viikainen, though, he is right there at a 133.59. So even though Juan Mi on top of the sheets, it's only by maybe a sliver.
Second lap being finished up here for the number one machine as he'll cross the line. Let's see what it's going to be. 33-1, quicker by 0.4 of a second. Viikainen, he's already finished his second lap, so he's not going to be able to respond. Gernot Friesche, though, he has been a bit of a question mark lately because his qualifying's gotten a lot better.
And I'm looking at the live timing of Gernot. I'm showing him tracking about half a second to the good right now. So all he's got to do is go around this final sweeping turn. It is so long, it feels like you have to wait forever before you stand on the gas.
Oh, he's up to 0.6 now on mine as well. He is going massively fast. What's it going to be? 33.6 just as the time runs out. That bumps him up to third right at the end. That means it's time for our starting grid for this penultimate round. And Juan Costa will put it on pole. Kimmo Viikainen will be P2 as Gernot Friesche starts in third today. Jack David Spickett will be P4, and Antti Lepisto will start in fifth. Dylan Freckleton, P6 for him, is followed by Kostas Zafiris in seventh, and Sebastian Zahual in the eighth position. Sam Ryman, excellent qualifying for him, P9 in top split. Patrick Samaran will round out your top 10.
And then in 11th, we have the number 10 car of Antonio Alvarez. Daniel Gallus will be lined up in 12th. Ian Haycox in 13th. Miguel Moreland in 14th. And then the final two is Cam Porter in 15th and AJ Roper that's going to share row number 8 with him there in 16th.
So a bit of a smaller field here today, unfortunately, but this is, I believe, over 3,200 strength of field. So it is stacked out there today. Who is going to be able to come away with the victory? Can Kimmo Viikainen keep up his speed compared to Costa, or is his return spelled doom for our now newly crowned champion on a somewhat warm track here today at 87 Fahrenheit, but not too outrageously hot?
No, I think we'll probably have to just kind of keep an eye on it. But one thing, it's kind of a medium speed section, especially through the middle. If we're going to see those track temps rise and anything happen, I would expect it to happen through there.
Exactly. And as we wait for the last of the cars to get out there, looks like they've now gridded up. The engines start to rev here in Hungary as the lights come up and the green flag is out. Off of the line. Ooh, it's a good start here from Kimmo Viikainen. He might need to try and sneak past here into the first corner. Defensive move down into the right-hander as Costa plunges down the hill. Under braking, it is deep for Viikainen. Can he finish it up? He pinches down. He gets the exit. Does he have the lead?
It's a nice move around the outside, but Juan Costa is going to try to hang tough now here in turn number 2, which you can do. Try to carry the momentum. Kimmo's going to try to squirt out with a little bit of acceleration, but it is still side by side. Viikainen finally gets the lead.
Oh, and here comes JDS as well. Juan Costa not having a good start to this race as he has to play defense. Goes a little bit offline, but he's able to keep the number 6 behind him for now. Antti Lepisto also close in. In fact, much of the front of the pack has not lost touch with these front runners because of that battling.
Well, and you know that Kimmo Viikainen, with how he is in the championship, he probably wanted to snag that pole position, but now that he's got the clean air, we're going to see if he can run away. Uh-oh, looks like a problem for Cam Porter a little bit further back.
Yeah, I think that was a solo incident. We'll try and take a look at it later, but he at least gets back on the circuit without hitting anything. Jack David Spickett still running in third position, chasing on Juan Costa. Is this going to be a train for the race, or is this legitimate pace from the number 4 today?
Well, looks like another car. Maybe that was Dylan Freckleton going off of the course right there in what is turn number 12. This really gets down to the slow area of this racetrack. The final 3 turns, just have to be really patient. All of that downforce that you put on the setup, it's not working right here. It's all up to your right foot.
Ooh, and you could see the smoke off of Zephyrus there as he just spun up the tires coming off the corner. Meanwhile, up at the front, Viekainen is going to lead lap 1 despite not starting on that pole position. We get a camera from him this time as well, so we get to see how he deals with this pressure.
It'll be really cool to watch this as the race develops here, and we're only the second lap. This is going to be long. This is going to be tedious, especially for these cars behind in that dirty areas. It looks like Costas Zephyrus and Dylan Freckleton still battling it out.
Yeah, Dylan had a good shot into turn 1. I didn't see if he tried to make the move there, but it looks like he's managed to get side by side and now past Costas. Oh, a switchback, though, as he goes a little bit wide. Zephyrus going to try the long way around, but nothing doing. Dylan will solidify it.
And he's trying to poke his nose down into this chicane section here that's always an aggressive passing opportunity, but now Dylan has just got to focus out the visor in front of him, lay down some of these apexes, start to stretch it out if he can.
Drivers trying to stay within those white lines, as I mentioned, because you can rack up those incident points if you're a bit sloppy here today. Alvarez back in 10th position, sandwiched between Sam Ryman, who still remains where he gridded up, and then he's got Zahul there behind him in the number 16, and Miguel Moreland just behind as well, kind of following up the tail of this train of cars.
And we're watching AJ Roper right here. He's in 12th, but he's made his way up 4 positions already as Juan Costa sets another fastest lap chasing Kimmo Viekainen. But I expect AJ Roper, he's got a handful of cars right in front of him. In fact, one's going to be Sam Ryman. He's going to be looking down to the inside, at least presents the car to Patrick Samaran right there, just saying, hey, I'm going to occupy this space in the mirror, see if I can put you off of the racing line.
I mean, remember the show that we saw last time at Mugello? Between these two, looks like it's picking up right where it left off. And behind them, Antonio Alvarez is now getting ever closer because of all this squabbling.
Well, and we always talk about Sam Ryman being smart out there, but the last couple weeks, we've seen a different Sam Ryman, a much more aggressive Sam that wants to go up there and race. And I kind of draw the parallel to a baseball pitcher, Joe. He's got a different number of pitches that he's trying to throw.
Yeah, I wonder if he got a little bit tired of us always bringing up that fact that he tends to kind of let drivers go if he feels too much pressure. Now he's switching it up, seeing if he can be the one to apply some pressure here. As behind him, Alvarez continues to see if he can just fill the mirrors of the expat Brit. Coming now down out towards turn 12, like you mentioned before. This is sometimes a passing zone, but doesn't look like anybody's close enough this time.
I really feel like this race is going to be, it's going to test a driver's patience, right? It's going to be tedious just because a lot of these corners, they approach each other very, very quickly. So the passing, it comes few and far between. It's all going to be posturing your race car, applying that pressure to the driver in front of them, and really trying to move them off of the racing line so that way you can capitalize on the opportunity.
Yeah, very interesting thing up there in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. JDS taking the fastest lap of the race, and he's still closely behind Juan Costa. The top 3 have not separated, but we've had more action back here, as you can see, with Alvarez spinning up the rear tires. That's one thing this car does not like, is some of these slower corners.
No, it's kind of a little bit like walking on stilts at that point for these cars. They like the higher speed stuff. It uses the aerodynamic effects. It uses the wings to push the car down onto the ground, and then when you're going at those slow speeds, Joe, you don't have those aerodynamic aids. The air isn't pushing on the car, so you don't have that extra grip anymore.
Now you've got me curious. Do you have experience walking on stilts?
Stilts, no. Probably bicycles that shouldn't have wheels that are out around, yeah.
Okay. you just piqued my interest there, but meantime, we continue to watch this 4-car fight as Patrick Samaran still leading them and dealing with the pressure from Sam Ryman quite well at this stage, but we're very early on, only 4 laps into this event. AJ Roper has started showing up in more and more of these vintage cars. We've seen him now arriving in the IMSA Vintage Series, but he's been over here in the Lotus 79s for a while. He's slipped up. You can see the gap that he lost there as he just took it too hot down into 13.
And that's another one of these slow speed corners. We were talking about the exits, but it also happens on the entry, right? You squeeze that brake pedal hoping that you're going to get that braking grip, but at those low speeds, it's just not there. So these drivers are going to have to continue to essentially apply the pressure to one another, forcing each other into those mistakes. Hopefully one of them is big enough that you can essentially open the door for yourself.
Back up to our leader. Kimo took the lead away, but this is what I wondered if it would happen. Is Juan Mi genuinely quicker and just didn't get off the line good enough, and now Kimo's going to have to basically drive his race and forget about that number one breathing down his neck?
Well, and also the Pepsi machine, and Antti Lepisto is right behind JDS as well, so Kimo Viekainen, although he does look very calm and composed right now, it doesn't look like any sort of cars in the mirror are rattling him whatsoever. I'm still curious about that third place car and what kind of setup he's brought to the table today.
Yeah, that is a good question, because I am impressed with how JDS has been running this one. Though it sounds like from his chatter before the race, he's just happy to be sitting in this third spot, because apparently last time we visited here, he was taken out basically on the first lap and didn't get to really compete. Now he's got a real shot at it and could try and sneak one over on these two. But Juan Mi Costa is going to have a tough one, because if we go by stereotypes, Finns are kind of notorious for being very cool, calm, and collected in races. So he's going to have to work very hard to rattle Kimo.
I just watched the exit of turn 14, that final turn, and Mr. Viekainen here on screen did a perfect job putting the foot down and really stretching that gap on exit. Doesn't allow any sort of opportunity for Costa to even present himself in the mirror.
Do you see how much the midfield was spread apart there, as we now get a battle, though, behind them? Alvarez trying to make the pass on Ryman, so he goes from attack to defense, and he is going to try and hold his own, although he might be overtaken by two. He does break early, as AJ Roper also goes by into P10. Alvarez up to ninth.
We're going to see, though. Let's see if Antonio Alvarez is going to pull AJ Roper as well as Sam Ryman right up to the back of Patrick Samaran right there. So all of this group of cars still very, very close. I would say probably in the 8th to 12th, 13th place range.
Yeah, and as they come up to the back half of the course, this is where it really gets slow and twisty through here. First through the chicane, and a car that is very stable and strong through this portion could gain a lot of time against your rivals with Samaran up in front of him. I just realized too, because I was curious, Patrick hailing from Club France might be Samaran. I don't know. I'm not sure how the French version of that last name might be pronounced. Oh, look at that. Way wide for Viekainen coming through the final corner. Almost opens the door for Costa, but he can't quite get through.
And it was about 3.5 tenths was Costa coming out of that final corner, and now he is going to present himself, but he knows that's just way too far back for the lunge. So I feel like if he really wants to get that slipstream and have an opportunity in turn one, he's going to have to be even closer, maybe 1.5 or closer than that to get that pull down the straightaway.
It must have been a bit of a mistake from Spickett, because his last lap was about 4 tenths slower than the previous one, and he's now dropped back to about a second behind them. That could be critical in this too. If Costa finds the pressure off, then that could open him up to finally start to attack. Whoa, as the car gets majorly loose. It took 2 tries to try and get it to turn in.
And we see kind of drivers push the limit on the entry of turn 5, and that's exactly what Juan Mi did. Wouldn't be surprised if he dipped that left rear, the outside rear tire into the grass on entry, but thankfully he's got some fast hands to save it.
Very lucky moment that our director decided to go on board. We could see exactly what the driver was doing, and boy, that had to have been scary for the number one machine, but he's held his own. He hasn't lost too much time. He's still within striking range, although he doesn't want to give too much of a tow to JDS behind him now that he managed to break it a little bit earlier. Let's see what it looks like now that they're coming back to the main straight.
And I actually think that Kimo just stretched it out in the final half of this lap. Juan Mi Costa nowhere close enough, so maybe it was that mistake there in turn number 5 and just trying to get the tires back underneath him. Juan Mi Costa is just going to have to take a breath and climb back up the hill.
Not sure if Spickett got distracted there as he dipped his wheels into the dirt. I think we got to replay this. Maybe Ian Haycox, because he is just towed out. Yeah, and this is, I believe, up into turn 5. And coming off of there, we've seen that a lot. Drivers just bottoming out on that exit curb.
Yeah, to kind of best explain it, these cars, they ride height on them is very, very low. The curbs, when you run over them, basically you bottom it out. All of a sudden, all of that grip is completely taken away because guess what? You don't have the rubber on the road anymore, and you are just a passenger.
Back to Roper down in 10th. Alvarez is not really caught up to Patrick in front of him. It's about 1.2 to 1.3 seconds still that they need to catch up. That said, Ryman has fallen off of them as well. So after he kind of gave up that position a bit, it looks like he's not been able to really hang. Roper, though, as you can see, is still glued to the gearbox of that number 10 car.
And they are kind of about 1 second behind Samarin, so I feel like if AJ Roper can get around this number 10 car that he is literally underneath the rear wing, maybe checking out that overflow bottle there that he's got, making sure it's not too topped up, but it's still got plenty of ventilation to go.
Always kind of wows me seeing these older vehicles and how open they all are, because now cars seem to be just so enclosed and aerodynamically sensitive, but maybe this is kind of where we started to see that a bit more with this car needing those aerodynamics for its speed. Alvarez continuing to struggle off of many of these corners. We've now seen the rear end of that car complain a couple times.
Well, and you talk about that, and it's brought Sam Ryman back into the fight. I know he's about 7/10 back as we were watching AJ Roper try to get around Alvarez, but because of those slipping of the rear tires, it's just bringing Sam closer and closer again.
I'm sure he's enjoying that, hoping to maybe try and work his way upwards. We got another replay here. Let's see what we're going to be checking out, as haven't seen anybody else with any problems necessarily. Cam Porter down through turn 2. He had an issue maybe out of 3. Yeah, oh, there's a big clip of the curb once again. Locks him up, comes to a halt, and thankfully no harm comes to the car.
Yeah, definitely. You never want any damage on the car. And something I was just noticing, Joe, Jack David Spickett, his last lap time, I believe it's the fastest lap of the race by about a quarter of a second. I always thought that JDS kind of brings some alternative setups, kind of like outside the box. He tries low wings, he tries high wings, and sometimes it just kind of works.
Do what your opponent is not doing, I guess, because you might as well try and get something different on it, see if you can pull a surprise on him. But Juan Costa, as we ride on the nose of the car, is still about 4/10 away. Spickett is catching up. Last lap, still close to that. In fact, his last lap was still faster than both Viakinen's and Costa's fastest lap, despite being slower than his best.
And we got to remember that JDS is being towed along by the draft of the front too, right? The fastest 2 cars on the racetrack. So he does have that going for him, but can't take away from the speed because he was 1.5 seconds back, and now he's closed it back to about 3/4 of a second, and he's brought Mr. Lapista with him too.
And, you know, you make me wonder if he does have a bit of an alternative setup on the car. Is it treating the tires better? Is that why we're seeing him come back? The other drivers maybe struggling a tad bit while his are lasting.
Now, I love to put the tinfoil hat on here, so I'm going to speculate just a touch. I think that JDS is running a touch more downforce than the rest, so he can be aggressive, you know, and then when he is that 3/4 of a second back, that toe, it's kind of a bit dramatic, right? It really pulls you along.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's kind of why I was also speculating that maybe his tires are sticking to the ground a little bit better while they're slipping and sliding around, getting them a little bit hot. They still have lots of rubber. These are old tires that they've modeled here on this car, but you can lose the grip over time, and the setup can start to go away from you, as Juan Costa might have to start watching the mirrors once again if Jack gets any closer. Let's see what the lap time looks like between them this time through. 34.296, so he's dropping a little bit now, so maybe he's also feeling some of the weight from the cars through those twistier corners.
And to talk about those tires, I think that you're right, Joe. I think that if you have a higher downforce set, you might be able to drive the car a little bit easier because it is providing you that grip. However, it is still down to the driver to be able to maximize that tire life. If you abuse it and are really sliding it around, driving the car over its limit, no matter what you do, it's not going to last.
Gernot Friesche, who qualified up in third, was not able to hold on to that at the start of this race. Slipped down to fifth, and now he's just been kind of on his own. Lepisto got by. He's been trying to chase down those top three, and poor Gernot's been kind of running lonely out here. But he's another driver that's known for having a quick car at the ends of races, so we could see him come back into this later.
And agonizingly close to that top four, right? He's about 1.8 seconds back, so if he can close it in just a little bit, I feel like he'll be able to essentially attach that fishing line when he gets that slipstream and close it right back in. And quite honestly, if those top four start battling, Gernot will be right there.
As we turn our attention back to the leaders, just want to note, after Gernot, it is 11 seconds to Dylan Freckleton. We're not even halfway through this race. Top five are running an incredible pace today.
I agree. They've really kind of proven to themselves and to everybody out here that they are the class of the field. They're running away from everybody. And I know that we've talked about them quite a bit already, but it's cool to see JDS in that group.
Yeah, I think he is impressed lately. He's found quite a bit of speed. Has become a serious problem for some of these top drivers as we watch from our leader back to Costa. It's been stuck in this position since the first lap when Kimo managed to make the pass. Now that they've hit the halfway mark more officially here, is Costa going to try and eventually come at him? Can he get close enough to try and do anything?
You see all of the sparks just being thrown from these cars everywhere on the racetrack. Really using those aerodynamics to glue the car down to the ground, get as much grip as you can through one of the slower corners here, turn 6 and 7. Make sure not to jump up over those curves. Actually, we haven't seen many problems there in 6 and 7. It's mainly been those high-speed curves there in 4 and 5.
You talked earlier about the drivers needing patience today, Joey. We've now seen them in this position for some time. We've gotten some passes back here in the mid-pack. What do these drivers do who feel like they're stuck in this situation? I mean, what actions can you take to make things change?
I think it's all about posturing. Sometimes even if you can't make the pass, you have to present yourself like you can, right? It's just a variable that you're introducing to that car in front of you. You're doing something different to force their eyes to look somewhere different, right? Just try to do something that you haven't done for the previous 12 laps and see if it works for a lap or two. It might not, or it might be to benefit. You just never know until you try.
Still stuck between Samaran and Roper. Actually, worth noting, because last time we spoke, it was, what 1.3 seconds from Patrick to Antonio. So he's cut that down significantly and made it a nice three-car battle for the 8th position as they come down the front stretch. Ooh, this is actually a pretty good run from that Renault liveried machine. He's going to poke his nose to the inside, try and outbrake Patrick, who's going to give him space at the apex. Is he fully through? Doesn't look like yet.
You can put the power down really good on the outside of 1, so Samaran still on the inside of turn number 2 here as they are side by side. Alvarez now is going to have the drivers inside, and look out for AJ Roper. He's going to do an over-under and grab that spot from Samaran.
Does he try another one? Oh, side by side into the left-hander is a no-no. He understands that, and he backs out of it. I was going to say that would be brave. So Roper will maybe try something a little later. Another little bobble out of Antonio. This offers a chance to pass down into the chicane. Roper's patience paid off. He gets 2 spots in 1 lap.
One of the few passes that we've seen down there into turn 6 today. A great job from AJ Roper. Joe, like you were saying, just patience ended up paying off.
Wow, sniped them both. Just set them up, waited for the right moment. Now that he's got clear air, can he maybe try and chase down Zafiris, who's about 6 seconds ahead? That has got to be frustrating for Antonio, or for Patrick, I should say, who lost both of those positions as we come back to Kimo setting the fastest lap.
And what that fastest lap has done is stretched it out 1.2 seconds over Juan Costa. So this is right at that range that if Kimmo Villakainen continues to gap it out over second, all of a sudden Juan Mi will not have that aid of the slipstream pulling him along, and JDS will be free to attack.
The ebb and the flow of this race is fascinating. Alvarez, though, in the meantime, you might notice he's no longer with the cars ahead. Well, he's spun it, unfortunately. So what started as a good move a little bit earlier on was given away as
We'll watch him down into turn 13 here. I think he just goes a little bit too hot. Car starts to break away. Oh, yeah, and on the exit, absolutely it breaks away.
But you called it, Joe. It was right in the middle of the corner where he had that loss of traction, and then basically it spun around on the exit. When you lose it right in the middle of the corner, it tends to tell me that you just carried too much speed into it.
So now he's got to worry about Sahul just behind him as we come back to JDS and Costa once more. These two start to fight. Lepisto's got to be licking his chops because he's still kind of close to them, close enough that a fight could bring him into the mix. Oh, and that was a big correction out of Jack coming through the final turn.
That was a gift to Juan B. Costa, essentially, and it's kind of gapped out now, the front five, to kind of 3/4 of a second between each of them. Jack David Spickett through that final turn, turn number 14, I've really noticed he's been using that downforce and trying to take the autocross, the shortest distance around, and it doesn't really pay dividends on the exit, which is, in my opinion, the most important part of the most important turn on the track.
The thing I find interesting about this race is these drivers have been stuck in this chess match up there, and we're starting to see little mistakes from what are top-tier drivers up here. The focus must be immense for them to try and push as hard as they are.
Well, let's think about that, right? Let's analyze it. If the passing is at a minimum, you have to be on 10/10ths for every single lap, every single corner. So you're right. I would say that the focus is at a maximum. You see Viakainen here. He hasn't blinked from what I've seen, but he also looks so calm and cool. That is part of what running up front does to you. You've been in this situation before. He's not nervous. He's in control, and he's just out there doing his thing.
You talk about real-world drivers and the confidence, the weight lifted off them once they win a championship. Chemo's wrapped his up. Is that what we're seeing? Is this a transformation of the Chemo of old, who was a bit prone to mistakes from time to time? And now, suddenly, we see him taking wins this season. We see him just putting good finishes down. He's yet to finish off of the podium this entire season, and he might rack up another win today.
Well, that last lap, a 1:33.7. I'm going through the timing chart. He is the fastest car on the racetrack right now, so he is trying to put his foot down, not only on the championship, which he's already sealed up, but today's race win as well.
Since not a lot of going on here, I'm just checking to see who our biggest movers are, and we have been watching him some. AJ Roper failed to set a qualifying time. He was the only car to do so. He's up 8 positions since the start of this race. So for a track where it's tough to overtake, he's managed to get a few done on his own. Unfortunately for him, it's about 7 seconds up to Costas. And I think since we last spoke about that, it was about 6. So I don't know that he's going to get much more than this.
I love this racetrack. I know it can produce a little bit of single file racing, but it's got cool elevation change to it. In my opinion, it's got some decent braking zones in 1 and 2 for some good passing opportunities. And then I just think that this back section, it is so different than the front half of the racetrack. And it might seem tedious, but each one of those switchbacks is a little bit different.
It certainly requires a lot. It's not my favorite track to drive, but sometimes it can put on a stunner. Sometimes it'll put on a snoozer. And Jack David Spickett's going to try and make this one an interesting one, at the very least, as he's back to up to about half a second behind Juan Mi Costa once again. Just the yo-yo back and forth of him gaining time, managing to get up to him, and then suddenly Juan Mi turns it up that little bit more and pulls back away once again. He's keeping him tantalizingly close.
And I'm pretty confident that this Pepsi machine is running a higher downforce. I was just looking at the top speeds. He equaled Juan Mi Costa, and you gotta remember, Jack is in the draft here, so if he can get closer, I don't think that pass is going to be coming in the conventional turns 1 and 2. I bet you it'll be more back here in turns 6, 7, or even in the very final few corners of the racetrack where it's really slow.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that one as we watch him on board pulling away a little bit on one of the last little spurts of straight line before now. It's just almost constant turning here through the back section of the track, back across the track, trying to find the apex of the right-hander, across once again, and very tricky actually braking into this corner, I found, with that little kink
on the entry, and oh so important because you can see a lot of cars do go wide at that exit.
I want to stay right here with JDS and see these lines through the final couple corners because these are the slowest, longest turns on the racetrack. If you feel like you got a lot of grip, you're going to take the shortest distance around. Does he kind of pinch the entry here? Does he let the car swing out wide? Yeah, he's definitely just all the way narrow through turn number 14 there, trying to maximize that setup that he's got on that race car.
Viacani with another fastest lap of the race, 33.5 that time. But looks like Costa's going to take it back with a 33.4 now. If you're not familiar with these cars, they do get much faster at the end of the race as the fuel burns off.
And it was 1.5 seconds, but it's down to about 1.1 seconds between first and second there. So maybe a little bit of a chess match of cooling off tires, trying to make another charge as we check back in on Sam Ryman, who has caught the back of Patrick Samaran. Remember, Ryman fell off of the back of that three-car train by about 2 seconds while he's put the visor down, and he is charging forward and has now caught Patrick.
All right, is he able to pass him this time? I believe he couldn't manage to get by Patrick back at Mugello. Can he maybe turn things around at this circuit and get himself back to where he actually started this race in 9th position as they come down through turn 2? This is one of those portions you were talking about. A huge drop in elevation, even though you wouldn't really think so. And checking in on Cam Porter, who's at least not giving up on this one. Unfortunately, though, he is the last car currently driving. Hopefully having a bit less of a dramatic race than what we saw in the IMSA Vintage Series, where he got into trouble a couple times yesterday.
I think that drama is probably not even on the page right now for Cam Porter, judging where he's at. He's just kind of running some laps out there, and I got to thank Cam Porter for coming and racing all the time. Some of the races definitely more exciting than others for him.
Yeah, exactly. And I do like seeing drivers, even if they've lost a lot of time, try and get to the checkered flag and stick it out.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, that shows a true racer mentality. Lepisto here, he's dropped back off of Jack David Spickett once again, and it's back up to 1.2 seconds. They have been getting quite stuck up here at the front of the field. We've got a replay. Oh no, is there a problem with Porter again? No, this is Daniel Gallus instead, up into the chicane, Joey.
Has entry to 6 right here, gets a big old loose section, and that was just too much speed into that first right-hander, but thankfully he stood on the brakes. It was really only kind of a quarter spin at that point.
Yep, so the traditional livery on the car not making it faster, unfortunately. He's down in 14th. He'll lose a bit of time to Cam, but he's got enough of a gap at the least. Timo Viekainen still up at the front. Now managing to keep Juanmi Costa behind by a little more than a second, coming into his own. It's been much closer than this for much of the race. Juanmi, is he starting to slip? Is he unable to keep up with Kimo in the last couple laps here?
And I think that crucially, Costa's right at that 1 second range, so if he's going to get even just a whiff of that slipstream, it'll be right now on the front straightaway. But we were talking about the tires and the different setups and who's using them and who's abusing them, right? Well, if it's going to show its head, I have a feeling with 5 laps to go here, it is going to be kind of rearing its ugly head on who abused them or who has saved them for the end.
Well, let's see what it's like to try and be on the fastest car in the race, or at least one of the fastest here. I mean, talk to us about what we're seeing from Kimo.
Oh, fast, right? Fast speed here.
Simply put, yeah.
But this is turn 4 on the racetrack. We've seen a lot of danger on the exit there. He keeps it nice and confined, and then very fast sweeping turn number 5. Once again, danger on those exit curves. This part of the racetrack, careful of the apex curves here. Those orange giant curves, they can really upset the car, but now it is this switchback section of the racetrack. You just want to stay ahead of it. If you fall behind in these S's, trust me, you're never going to get ahead of yourself, so you have to kind of train yourself. Be ahead, be way ahead, and don't get behind on the car.
I'd say he's been ahead of the car this whole time. Nice and smooth through the corners, not seeing any corrections as we've been riding on board with him like we saw a couple times there from Juanmi Costa chasing. Yeah, just turns it into the corner, lets it do its thing. comes off of it, hits the throttle, and then he's done as we check in on his camera once more, and haven't really seen a lot of abuse of the track limits either from Kimmo Viekainen. So he seems to be sitting pretty and just soaking up this pressure lap after lap. Now down to 4 to go. Unfortunately for Costa, he's got to change something, and he tried to. I think he just went a little wide in turn 1 just as we cut away there.
As we're watching Samaran and Sam battle back here for 9th. I know that we keep checking in on Viekainen, and I keep saying that he's so calm and collected, looks totally focused, but I do kind of have to tap myself on the shoulder and say, remember, he is a Finn.
Yeah. And Patrick here trying to see if he can pull away from Sam Ryman now. He's got a gap of about 0.7 of a second. So he is going to feel a little bit of that slipstream down the main straight. Not enough to attack this time down into turn 1. He's going to have to close that one in to truly try and make this one a battle here in a moment. That gap that I had mentioned between Freesia and Freckleton now up to 17 seconds. So that continues to spread apart. Zahul, who we watched at the start, has dropped 4 positions, not had the race I think that he really wanted on this one, and also really on his lonesome in that 16, about 6 seconds behind Alvarez and about 3.5 seconds ahead of Moreland, who we now see on screen.
And Miguel Moreland, another one of these drivers, I really feel like kind of the back half of this field is a little bit of a lonely race today. He is up 1 position from where he qualified, but got about 3.5 seconds up the road to Sebastian and 10 seconds behind him to Daniel Gallus right here, who we just saw a handful of laps ago have this problem in turn number 6 here. This next corner, hopefully he keeps it nice and tidy this time around.
Yeah, let's see how he handles this chicane. It is tricky down through there, and you can see how much of that first curb they're having to take, climbing over it, which I'm sure just unsettles the car significantly as you lift that bottom off the ground, but he handles it well, and he'll carry on still in that 14th spot. Impressively, only the single DNF of Ian Haycock's here today at this stage. Zafiris sliding the rear of the car around. I'm sure Ian's going to be a little bit annoyed that he is the only car, it looks like, to DNF on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a shame that you're not out there playing with your buddies, essentially, right? That's what we're doing. We show up to the playground and you get to hang out and play with all your friends on the racetrack. And you're right, anytime you get knocked out of it, it's always a pretty big bummer watching everybody else play.
Yeah, not much he could do. They can repair the car and try to, but he knocked a wheel completely off of it. That'd probably be way too much for this short of a race. They only last a little over half an hour typically here in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. Dylan Freckleton. This was, I think, the big one for him this track. I think this was the first podium that he ever got in the series. He's not going to be able to do that today, but we have to remember this is top split, so him getting 6 is going to certainly do no harm to his pride, although he probably wants to be somewhere close to someone trying to chase them down with that now 18-second gap up to Gernot Freesia. He can't even see the next car ahead.
Well, and I draw a lot of similarities, parallels between Freckleton and also Jack David Spickett. I feel like these two drivers, they've really proven themselves through the F2 Championship, you know, have graduated up to those podium finishes, and they each have their tracks that they're extremely fast at. Freckleton, maybe not a huge fan of Hungaroring, but you know what? He's got others that he's very strong at. As we check in on Gernot Freesia here, just hanging out in the 5th place, agonizingly close to the back end of Antti Lepisto this entire race.
Yeah, but now it's even farther. It's up to 2.2 seconds, so he is losing bit by bit, and we're down to, I think it's going to be white flag next time by. Yeah, Kimmo Viekainen's going to get that soon. So I'd say he's run out of time unless somehow he gets a mistake out of those ahead.
This is Antti Lepisto, that car that Gernot was chasing, and jump back up here now to Jack David Spickett in the 3rd place as this final group of cars, they round turns number 13 and 14, and see Barney waving that white flag.
Indeed, Kimmo Viekainen now gets the signal for 1 to go here. And I believe this is going to be the 3rd win of the season for Kimmo as long as he brings it around on this last lap. just shows you how impressive he's been, that he's taken the championship, and this is only going to be win number 3. But like we said, every single run has been on the podium for him so far this season. So nobody's really been able to find a crack in the armor other than maybe speed on some races that he's been beaten out there in this Lotus 79. We've gotten his camera, something we haven't had in the past. Glad to see him send us that now that the championship is over, and let us get a chance to see the face of the man that has finally managed to break that duck and get his first championship in this series.
Ooh, and actually something I see on the horizon right here is a little bit of lapped traffic. Now, I don't think it's going to affect Kimmo at all, but I think if that car slows down, it will have to be a decision that Kimmo has to make. And the other thing I noticed about this onboard camera, this last lap is the first time that I've ever seen him take his eyes off of the main screen. He looked up, tried to see where those relatives were, where everybody else was on the track.
Yep, not quite going to catch Cam Porter here on this last lap, so the timing's going to work out perfectly for Kimmo, and Cam's going to be able to finish all the laps, it looks like. Out through the final corner, win number 3 for the number 4 car, who went from second to first on the first lap and never looked back.
Just a fantastic drive from Kimmo Viekainen there. Another checkered flag under the belt. Juan Costa did finish in second. Jack David Spickett rounding out the podium. Nice job, JDS.
Top 3 were just barely over 3 seconds apart by the end of the race, so they were very closely matched to one another. It's just, unfortunately, they were too closely matched for a track like this, where passing is at a premium, and AJ Roper is absolutely going to get that hard charger here with 8 spots gained, up from dead last on the field. I think that's a pat on the back for that 14 driver.
100%, and we saw the patience pay off for AJ Roper early on in the race. He was just stuck behind a train of cars, but then ended up paying off, getting pretty much 2 for 1 in a matter of a couple corners as Kimmo Viekainen celebrates the right way.
Yes, no worries about ruining an engine here in these cars, so he burns it down. As we're going to take a quick break, we'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so don't go away. Welcome back to the Hungaroring. It certainly looked like it was a tough one today if you were stuck behind somebody, but Kimmo Viekainen, he made good use of that as he made the pass on lap 1 after starting from second, and he wound up winning the race ahead of Costa by 2 seconds, and then it was another second back to Jack David Spickett there behind him to round out your podium. Antti Lupisto was P4 today, managing to get by Gernot Friese early, who had to settle for 5th. Unfortunately, could not keep up with that top group. And Dylan Freckleton then was a monstrous gap back there by 19 seconds in 6th place. Zefiris P7 was ahead of AJ Roper, who cut his way through the field into 8th. And Sam Moran managed to hold off Sam Ryman, finishing 9th and 10th, respectively.
Then we have Antonio Alvarez finishing in 11th. Sebastian Zahul in 12th, Miguel Moreland in 13th, Daniel Gallus in 14th, and Cam Porter is going to be rounding out all of the cars that finished today's race. Unfortunately for Ian Haycox, we saw that spin into the wall there in turn 4, about 7 laps into it, and did not get the car repaired.
And it looks like we've got our winner, Kimmo Viekainen, ready to talk to us about this race. As sometimes champions newly crowned can seem to lose their motivation, but we did not see that today at all from Kimmo. Kimmo, you made that pass on the first lap, and it looked like you were not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, I did 2 races behind Antti this week, and it's awful to drive behind someone here. And I just wanted to take the first place and managed my own race.
Now, what did you do different to try and get that pass done? Was there anything special that you changed on the setup or your start process to make sure that you were able to get them?
I had more downforce on this last race than I did before, but I'm not sure. I just wanted to have a good start and see what one me does, and I got the inside on turn 2, and I think that's the best way to the overtake.
Yeah, it certainly proved to be the right way in this case. Also, you've connected your webcam so we can finally see your face. Is this going to become a regular thing?
Actually, I bought a webcam from my friend this weekend because I have my own webcam to my own screen, and I can link up my own device to two different streams. So let's see if I'm not streaming my own. I think I'll put my webcam to you guys.
Well, we'll see what happens, and it was certainly fun seeing just how calm you were able to stay with Wanmi so close behind. Not only congratulations on the win, but the championship.
Yeah, thanks guys. I just had to manage my own race and hit my marks, and Wanmi gave me all the pressure, but I managed to avoid mistakes today and take the win. And also the championship, I think I have been the Mr. Consistent and have been on the podium every week.
Yes, you absolutely have, and it's really wowed us. That was our winner, Kimmo Viekainen, continuing that streak of podiums here today. As Wanmi Costa is our second place finisher, Joey has caught up with him.
Wanmi Costa, congratulations on the podium. A mighty fine second place finish today.
Hello, thank you. Yeah. Congratulations to Kimmo.
So I saw you in the chat. Do you want to take back your positioning there in turns 1 and 2 at the beginning of the race?
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I knew before from past years the outside is always faster, especially at the start. I don't know why the hell I took the inside.
Yeah, it didn't seem to work out for you. Kimmo definitely took advantage, but then after that, maybe what did you need? Was it maybe just a little bit more practice time? Was it something out of the setup that you needed to catch and pass Kimmo at that point?
I need a mistake from him. No, nothing more. We had the same pace, almost 1 or 2 tenths difference, almost. So if you don't make a mistake here, it's almost impossible to pass. And I was the one making mistakes at the end, not Kimmo.
Well, a very modest interview from Juan Costa here. Let's look towards next week. Are you going to be racing with us at Le Mans, and are you looking forward to it, or are you just kind of about the draft fest?
No, thank you. Yeah, I did once, never again. If I want to make NASCAR, I go to the Xfinity or something.
Copy that, Juan. Well, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Again, Kimo for the championship, and Juho also did a great championship, and to you for the broadcast.
Well, thank you, Juan, for coming out and racing with us today. Finishing in second place, that was the driver of the number 1 car, Juan Costa.
And looks like we got one more chat to have. We'll get the opposite end of the spectrum on this one, with Cam Porter finishing last of the drivers, still running at the end. Cam, it's been a bit of a rough weekend, it's felt like, for you. What were you struggling out there today with?
Well, obviously, I locked up my brakes going into the chicane on the first lap. I did about 30 minutes of practice. I did the 30-minute official practice before the race. Never had a problem with spinning, never had a problem with locking up my brakes at all. And then I do both of those things in the race. Oh, that's kind of frustrating. But just this season has been down for me. I had some really great successes. I've won several races in second split, but when I am in the top split, I am always the slowest car on the track. So it's a little bit frustrating. I feel like I had the pace to, once I'd cut the chicane because of locking up my brakes, I feel like I had a little bit the pace to catch up to Miguel and maybe make a race of it. So I was trying to push hard, and of course I spun it in a place I never had trouble before. So a little bit frustrating, and kind of a lonely race after that.
Well, they've recently announced that they're going to be splitting the open wheel and the tin top iRacing here. So do you think that might have an effect to keep you from being on that bubble of the split for the 79s?
That's a good question. I think so, because I have more success in the other series that I do that are tin tops than the two Formula cars that I race, the 79 and the 49. I'm always in mid-pack in both of those series, really. And the other races that I do are supercars and Audi and the IMSA Vintage series, as well as PCC and the Mustang. In the Tin Top series, I have much better success. So I think having those two iRacing split will help me have more competitive races in the Formula cars.
We'll keep an eye on that and see what kind of effect it has. And it's certainly going to be fun to watch from our perspective as well. And commiserations, let's cross our fingers next week. You get something good to celebrate.
Thanks. Looking forward to Le Mans.
That was Cam Porter finishing 15th, unfortunately, out there here at the Hungaroring, which is going to wrap us up with a big thank you to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us out for another season of coverage. And also a thanks to the team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. As we just heard Cam mention, Le Mans is going to be the next one, and that is at the historic layout without the chicanes, so it's going to be wild. That'll be Sunday, March 3rd at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, since we will have majors on that weekend. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts listed here, because we got a couple more coming up today, including the MX5 World Sim Series has Zolder and Silverstone at 3:50 p.m. Eastern, so don't miss that, because it is a crazy race usually. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.